First of all, a disclaimer. What we're about to talk about isn't for everyone. In fact, if you don't fully know and get what we're saying, don't do it until you do. We are groundbreaking here. We are trying things out. We are getting victories. But, disclaimer there, don't try it unless you fully get what we're saying and what we're doing. And with that, an update, over to Kev.
Hi, my name's Kevin White. You probably saw me last week giving the talk, Eviction Fraud of the Banks, about gas and electric. But before I start, I'd like to give you a picture where I am at the moment with it. I'm with a small group. There's probably about 5 of us in that group, but there's 4 cases going off, all coming from different angles. We know it works because they're running around like headless chickens at the moment, and they just don't know what to do with us. But we're all at different stages in our case, and it's all different scenarios that we're in. Every case is different. It's ironic, to be honest, but we're all at the same point. We've not progressed any further, 4 of us, but we're at the same point. But the key is where we need to be, and I reiterated that last week. We need to be in county court, because when you read statutes and acts, I can interpret the act, and Mark can read the act and interpret the act, but the only one person that can interpret the act correctly is the judge. So it's like Mark said, if it's for the light-hearted people, faint-hearted people, then we urge you not to do it, because it means you going to court. It's not a quick fix. You'll have to may have to go to court. You'll have them banging on your door. You'll get the threat letters, and it'll just keep going. And then you just give in, and then a lot of people just say it didn't work for me, and they pay.
And the problem with that is, if you try and then give up, you make it weaker for all those that are going to see it through to the end. So if you don't think you've got the cojones yet, wait, let us do a bit more trailblazing, because as soon as we crack it, you'll all know, and we hope you'll all do it and have the same results.
And I can assure you that there's people fighting it behind the scenes in little groups spotted about the UK, and we're getting there. And we're not legally trained, but they just don't know what to do with us, do they?
No.
I haven't got a clue. The information that I've been asking, they're not giving me the information what I'm asking. They twist it and try and bluff you, fool you that you have to pay it, and what you're doing is wrong.
Well, this doesn't just go for that. It goes for the debt collection scene, everything. Yeah. They will pretend to answer your question, but what they actually do is they get to the actual crux of the question, and they'll skirt round it, and they'll pretend they've answered it. This goes for it all, though. But
yeah. Anyway, before we start, I found this quite amusing. I went to my bank yesterday.
Yeah.
And because I've done the direct debit indemnity clawback, and I put an account in dispute with an energy company, I just wanted to cover all my bases.
I take it you didn't actually do the clawback yesterday?
No, I did the clawback over a month ago.
Okay. Oh, so it's clear. If they haven't challenged, it's clear.
Yeah. They was given 2 weeks to come at me, which they didn't, and then 2 weeks to go to the bank, and they didn't show proof of claim to the bank. But so I could cover all my bases and cross the T's and dot the I's. I went down to my local bank and I asked for a letter that I'd followed correct procedure for the direct debit indemnity clawback. And the guy was all there in a nice suit, and he said, "Have you paid for it?" I says, "Well, yeah, I've paid for it lawfully under the bills of exchange as a negotiable instrument." Do you know what he said?
I've got a feeling you probably didn't have a clue what you were talking about.
Yeah, he says, "What are you talking about?" This is true, he says, "I don't know what you're talking about, I don't understand." And I said to him, I find it quite amazing that you're in the banking sector and you do not know what a bill of exchange is. I asked him what a promissory note was. He vaguely had a clue what a promissory note was. And I said, "Well, you should know, because your bank and every bank and corporate business within the UK are issuing promissory notes, because that's how commerce works. This country is living off credit, drawing fictitious figures out of thin air. I mean, we're bankrupt already.
Exactly.
as a nation.
And that's why we have to live off, it's not so much credit, it's debt. We have to live off that because we're bankrupt. However, under the bankruptcy terms, every 7 years, your debts are supposed to be wiped out. But they don't follow the rules and regulations, they just decide to keep hounding us.
Yeah. So what I want to talk about is the gas, because that's what group I'm mainly involved with. We're fighting the gas. I want to talk about the gas. Then we'll talk about, I'll try and explain it as best I can in layman's terms for people that don't understand the concept. But it's something that you can't learn in 5 minutes. You must understand the concept for it to work and know the argument. But we'll talk.
And if you don't, then just keep watching the videos, keep doing your research, keep reading the acts we're talking about until the penny will drop. But even then, if you're unsure about anything, check it out with someone that knows before you actually go the whole hog.
Yeah, I mean the group that I'm in at the moment, before I start on what I want to talk about, we're getting more and more cases now coming through friends, through text messages, inbox on Facebook, that I've got problems, I've got gas warrants, and we're actually bringing people. We've brought 2 people into the group over a week period, again both at different stages. And that's where we are, and what we're doing, we're coaching them on what to say, and we're telling them don't post anything, don't send anything off until you've spoke to us, because we know what we're doing works, and we know that because we've got proof that it works. One of the guys in the group, and he's helped me a lot and guided me through it, is Paul Webster.
Yeah.
You know, Paul Webster. He's a bit mad in a way because he's not been able to pay his bill honourably through the bills of exchange, but he paid with the bills of exchange, and the energy company he was with have literally walked away. They've run away from him because they don't want to get it into county court. I've seen comments on YouTube comments, what's the big deal about county court? Well, that's where we need to be, in civil jurisdiction, not criminal jurisdiction over this, because it's a civil matter. And another guy that brings a lot to the table as well is a guy called Jay. So he's been given a lot of information. I'd like to thank Jay for his help. And he's paid with the bills of exchange and has been doing for quite some time, so we know it works. You just got to keep prodding. We're prodding at different angles to get to where we want to be, to that door at the end of the corridor which takes us into county court. So we'll talk about the gas warrants, because we found a few things that will surprise you, and I think it might surprise you. We'll go about that. We'll go through how you pay with the joint gyro credit slip, and there's another one which is called the bank gyro credit slip, and I want to show you the difference between the two. I can see the difference between the two and actually what they mean, and take it from there really.
Yeah.
So first of all, when you put your gas bill in dispute for whatever it is, they will apply for a warrant of entry under the 1954 Gas Act to say that your gas supply isn't safe. So the gas agent that's applied for that warrant has given sworn information to that magistrate that he's been to your property and he deems that your gas supply is not safe.
So he's actually committed perjury then?
He's committed perjury, yeah, he's lying. But the trick is, and I've said it before and you've probably heard it before, the trick is that they get into your property to change your meters, and they quote the 1986 Gas Act to do that. Right, now you wonder why they quote the 1986 Gas Act. Well actually, did you know they actually applied for 2 warrants at the same time?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they're actually applying for 2 warrants at the same time within the court.
I would guess one under each act?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's take the 86 Gas Act out of the way first, so it saves confusion. So if they just apply under the 1954 Gas Act and they come to your property, a tip that I'd like to give you is make sure, or if you can afford it, get a gas safe certificate from an independent gas safe engineer, plumbing engineer.
Should cost about 30 quid.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was quoted 45 quid. Another guy, he was quoted 30 quid. It varies between obviously the plumber that does it, the engineer, but make sure the gas safe registered, because as soon as you show that gas safe certificate, it blows the 1954 warrant of entry out the window straight away, because now you've shown that your gas supply is safe. That's it, nothing else can be done.
And I can vouch for this because Tom did exactly that.
Yes. Now, let's throw the 1986 Gas Act, because those people that are probably watching us now have had a warrant.
Can we just clarify that
Yeah.
the 1954 Act is civil or criminal?
The 1954 is criminal because that's under health and safety. That comes under criminal jurisdiction because it's a warrant of entry. And I've got no problems with that if your gas supply's not, is
Oh,
unsafe.
you don't want to get blown up, do
No,
you?
you've got family and kids. I've no issues with that whatsoever. So now let's put the 86 Gas Act into this warrant of entry under the 54, which is what they quote. And probably some of you have actually seen that written in your warrant. Okay. What they're actually applying for there is another warrant, which is called a statutory warrant under the 86 Gas Act, which is the engineer is obliged, if you like, has all jurisdiction really, to come to your door, knock on your door and ask to install prepaid meters. All you have to say is, I do not consent. It's a statutory instrument. But what they do is, they attach that to the 54 Gas Act, because now once they're in your property, because they have lied, once they're in that property, they now don't need your consent. So now they can fit your prepaid meters, and hopefully that's highlighted it why you sometimes see the 86 Gas Act quoted within the warrant of entry.
That's if they haven't issued it themselves.
Yeah.
Well, that's another subject.
Yeah, but if you get a warrant of execution, which is just normal like the bailiffs do, warrant of distress, warrant of execution under the 86 Gas Act, that doesn't quote the 54 Gas Act, that is just a statutory instrument that requires your consent. And if you do not consent, they cannot step foot in your property. And it's as simple as that, really. And I think that's the best way to explain it. I can't explain it any simpler than that, to be honest. So just bear that one in mind. So when they apply for a warrant, they have to give you notice that they're coming for a warrant. And I strongly advise you, because a case that I went to up in Crewe in Cheshire, and the guy knows what I'm talking about, and I'll just tell you a bit about his little case in a moment. I can't say too much because it may jeopardise his case, so I'm not going to mention no names or no energy companies. We already went to court and the warrant was thrown out as soon as we walked in, even though we showed the gas agent and produced the gas safe certificate. He wasn't interested, but the warrant was still struck out, and I think they knew full well that we would turn up, and they were watching us quite closely. However, there was 21 warrants applied for on that day, but only 20 warrants were passed. Now when we sat in like the foyer bit before we was allowed in the court, because we demanded to go in the court that warrant was struck out who we were representing, and we got the agent to actually give us a bit of paper that he signed himself, so now he's liable really. I couldn't believe that he did it, to be honest. It was so easy.
Because they're not used to being questioned.
No.
They think, I'll sign anything because I'm above the law.
Yeah. He signed the warrant to say that it had been withdrawn, not struck out. There's two different terms there. Struck out's been dismissed by the judge, withdrawn, it's just been withdrawn, so they can still apply for another warrant. So we went into the magistrate's court after, and we just caught probably the last 3 warrants, so they wouldn't let us in when they were doing the warrants as such, but there was 21 warrants applied for, only 20 were stamped off. We were the ones that walked away. Nobody, not one person, set foot in that court and challenged their warrant. And it's a must that you go in and you challenge your warrant. And that's why I always say, if you've got a gas safe certificate, it throws the 54 Gas Act straight out the window. The only option they've got to do now is go for a warrant of execution under the 1986 Gas Act, which requires consent. But when we was in the magistrate's court, yeah, we saw it. We saw the old bum, 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 click, click, click with the stapler. But, and on I probably only heard maybe 5 stamps go through. So the rest was done in the closed court when we weren't allowed in. We was allowed in at the latter stage when they asked us to go in.
That would suggest to me it was probably a bulk case. So yeah, rubber stamp the lot,
Yeah.
just like that, even though that's against the law, because every case has to be heard on its own merit, but
Yeah.
we know that how crooked the courts are.
Yeah, so that was it. And this was with this particular case. So we left court, we did a video, it's on YouTube, where we're outside the courts at Crewe. So then when we came back, they applied for another warrant. About a week later they said they were applying for another warrant. So the guy that I'm helping out, we wrote a nice letter to British Gas and basically put them on notice again that your agent was notified that we'd produced the gas warrant, and now
Certificate.
Yeah, sorry, the gas safe certificate. And now now you knowingly know that if you provide or apply for any more warrants, it's now fraud. We also quoted, which is a good one that I urge you to look at, is Ferguson v British Gas PLC Trading, British Gas Trading Limited, 2009. It was case law where this particular lady was harassed by British Gas saying the bill wasn't paid for because it wasn't her bill, and it genuinely wasn't her bill. She took it to county court, made a claim. She was awarded £10,000 in damages, and I think that court case cost British Gas in total £33,000. So we quoted.
But unfortunately, they're quite prepared to throw money at it
Yeah.
to try and win, even when they know they're in the wrong, because they've been ripping us off for so long. They've got so much money
Yeah.
that they don't care. They'll throw millions at it,
Yeah.
even if it's just for 10 grand. They'll throw millions to try and make sure they win.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they're not winning.
No. So we quoted the Ferguson versus British Gas Trading Limited, and we also found out, because as I say, we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, we also found out who their solicitors were. So we served a letter and a notice to the solicitors. So we covered our bases to say, we know who you are, we know you representing this company, and if you now only know what we've done and what we've served and the gas safe certificate, you're now committing fraud under penalty of perjury, because now you're trying to get money by menaces through harassment, basically bullying and harassment. Well, as I've just come down today in the car, I got a phone call from the particular guy that we've been helping, and he's had a letter, and they've withdrew the warrant for next Friday. And in the correspondence he's had, they've said that there will be sending further correspondence in due course. So my assumption is they've got two choices. They can either walk, or the only choice that they've got now is to take him to county court, which is where we want to be. No one's been in county court that we know of in our group that's done it. Everyone's done it outside of county court. While I remember, I just want to go back to the magistrates court when they're applying for the warrant. Once you rebut that warrant with the gas safe certificate, and the magistrate then issues the 86 warrant of execution, I would say more than likely he's now flipped jurisdiction into civil jurisdiction, because some people say they can't do civil in magistrates. They can. If the judge is trained on both criminal and civil law, he will flip jurisdiction without you knowing, and then you're scratching your head and you're thinking, well, hold on a minute, I've just rebutted the 54 warrant, so that should blow it out the window, and it's now going for an 86 warrant of execution. You should know now that you're in civil jurisdiction, and now you can say, don't be frightened. You say, and don't be frightened of these people. Stand up and say, so we're now in civil jurisdiction now, sir. So that requires consent. That's a statutory instrument. So I hope I've cleared that bit up. So the way we're going as well, we discharge the alleged bills, or the bills, we pay through the bills of exchange. And one of the documents that we use is the Consumer Credit Act 1974, section 123, paragraph 5. Never ever pay with a promissory note on your utility bills, that's gas, water and electricity, and never ever pay with an accepted for value.
Can we just explain to them why?
Yeah, because on the Consumer Credit Act, if you read that section 123, there's 6 points. There's only one person that can pay with a promissory note, and that's a commercial company issuing it to a banker. They're the only people that can do it with a promissory note. When you come down that section, I think it's to about section 4, it will say that we, the people, that we can use negotiable instruments, and that's what we're using. We're using a negotiable instrument under these gyro credit slips, which I'll explain to you in a moment. And then the 5th one is the one that blows it out of the water. It says doesn't apply to a non-commercial agreement. Well, we're non-commercial because we live in private house dwellings. The only people that are liable to it under that Consumer Credit Act is businesses, be it petrol stations, supermarkets, factories, anybody that's using our natural resources for commerce to make profit and use the resources, and they make the money. They're the only people that's liable to pay for the cost, because it's already paid for, and we're the creditors. I've heard people say, well, we should pay for the water because we clean it and we purify it and stuff like that. If that's your way of thinking, I'm not here to argue the point with you, then that's fine. But for those people that want to go that step further, then you can challenge it because it's already paid.
Well, one of the other things the naysayers often say is, well, they take the water away and clean it, and yes, they do take it away. But through whose infrastructure did they take it away? Through our infrastructure that we bought and paid for many, many years ago.
Yeah.
Bought and paid for, they've just hijacked it.
Because it was a while back, this country, as you know, went bankrupt. And
1939
yeah,
was the last one. No, actually, 2008 was the real last one.
But it goes back to your great-great-great-grandparents, where the country was in a state and it did go bankrupt, and they gave the natural resources back to the people, but at the same time they put the debt onto the people but made us the creditors. So it was your great-great-grandparents that built the infrastructure to where we are today. So it's your given right, and it's already paid for. So that's why we pay under the bills of exchange. Before I go into the joint giro credit slips, a bit about the bill of exchange. If you take something away from the man always has to be compensated. It's very clear in the bill of exchange. So you're doing it day in, day out of your working day and your working life without you even knowing it. So when you go to a restaurant and you eat from that man's business, you take all his food and his drink.
Hopefully not all of it.
Oh, no, yeah. But at the end of the night, when you've had a good night, hopefully, you ask for the bill. You don't ask for the invoice, you ask for the bill. Because you've took from him, you now have to compensate him. So you compensate him with cash, a cheque, or credit card. You always same as if you go to the shop or anywhere. So you're doing it day in, day out. So that's how basically a bill of exchange works. You've got different forms of bills of exchange. The way that we do it is through endorsement. Promissory notes, yes, it is an accepted value under the bills of exchange. And so is A for V, accepted for value. Although what we've found out, not a lot of companies, it's not being used so much now.
Well, they realised that we figured out how to use it, so they thought, quickly, get rid of that.
Yeah, but we do it through a negotiable instrument, which is all laid down in the bills of exchange. Now, if you pay a bill, and a bill is always payable on demand. If you pay a bill and that bill is returned, then the people that receive it, or the company that received that, are now in dishonour, and they're basically saying that the alleged debt or the alleged whatever is now been discharged. It was never owed.
That also works where if you say, for instance, allegedly owe something to a bank or a credit card or a loan, and they sell it on to a debt collector, well, they've effectively paid it off for you, so the same rule applies.
Yeah. If you want to know a bit more about that, if you go to the bills of exchange, and you can Google all these documents that I'll be quoting through the video, it's the Bill of Exchange 1882, and you want to go to section 43, and it will say dishonour, and it will tell you what the clauses are for dishonour on a bill that's been refused. And if they actually send the bill back, it's still in our favour because they have not accepted a value bill of exchange. So therefore, it's been discharged again.
So of course, the only problem is they will still claim that it hasn't been, even though. Seriously, look up the Bills of Exchange, section 43. Absolutely, it states that if they refuse payment, the debt is discharged.
Yeah. So what we'll go on to now is the joint giro credit slips.
What's the difference between a joint giro credit slip and a normal?
Right. Because we're non-commercial, whenever you get a credit slip, I'll say credit slip for the moment, you've probably seen them where you've got them on when they send you a bill and it's a little tear off at the bottom. There's two types. The first one, and I'll show you them and I'll circle what you need to look for. The first one is a bank giro credit slip. Now that can only be paid for with cash, sterling or cheque, and that's a two-way movement. That's from a company to a man or a woman, or a company to a company. That's called a bank giro credit slip, and that's the only way it can be signed for. The other way, it can only be paid for. The other way is a joint giro credit slip. Now that's, for us, that's where we come into this, and because we're the creditors, and I'll show you, it's not the actual company that issue your bill, it's the corporate bank. So I think it's a good time now to show everybody.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to circle something, circle one highlight, then I'll show it to the camera.
Now, which is this?
This is what I'm going to show you now, is the bank giro credit slip.
Which we're all pretty familiar with at the bottom of your bill.
Yeah, I'll circle an item, I'll show it to the camera, but Mark will overlay it in clarity, but you'll know where I'm referring to, so you can learn and understand it. So the first bit is a bank giro credit slip, and if you can see on the top left, that is the company who's issued this bank giro credit slip. In this case, it's Capital One. Okay. The next bit I'm circling is the address to who that bill is payable for, who owes the bill. So that's there, that could be your address. In the bottom left hand corner, that's the value that you pay, and then that's handed over with cash or cheque at a post office, and the bill is discharged. That's a bank giro credit slip. Okay? The next one I'm going to show you is what is for us, for the non-commercial agreement. This one is called a joint giro credit slip. Must remember those words, and it's key word, joint giro credit slip. Now when you get that, a lot of people think it's the billing company who you're with that issue this joint giro credit slip. It is not. If you look on the top left there, that is the company or the bank, which is the corporate bank, and below for this one it's Santander. It could be the Royal Bank of Scotland, it could be the Alliance in Leicester. It depends what corporate bank the energy company is using, but it's these people that issue this. It's these people that issue this joint giro credit slip, and right underneath it, if you've got one, have a look yourselves at home. It says corporate bank. So it's those that issue it, because it's already been paid for. Okay, so it's the corporate bank where I've identified in the top left. That's the bank that issued the joint giro credit slip. That then in turn is addressed to yourselves,
Joe
Bloggs in this case. You will go to the post office, you will pay the cashier with cash or cheque. They then in turn scan this long barcode. That barcode is your account. That is now zeroed back. So your domestic tariff is now zero.
So what they sort of scam you there, because most people would look at that and think that's the barcode for the company.
Yes.
So
for
this
their
is
account.
Yeah, rather than it being your account. Okay, so
but the post officers don't know any different. They do think it is the company's account barcode.
Yeah.
It's not. It's your account. It's your account, and then that zeroes back your domestic tariff. When you pay as well, in the bottom right, and this, it doesn't have it on the bank giro credit slip, but on this one, the joint giro credit slip, just there, and I'll hold it to the camera, there is the clearing bank facility. Now that's another bank. In this case, I think this one is NatWest. So when you pay the money at the post office and they scan it, that then goes to NatWest, which is the clearing bank, and then the money's dispersed appropriately to wherever it needs to go to. And then on the top left as well, and I'll circle it, you've got the letters TransCash, which means transfer cash. And if you were in debt, it would obviously say joint giro debit slip. Would you agree?
or trans debt.
Yes, but if I circle the top left, you can see clearly it says bank, giro, credit, because we're the creditors, so it's credit to us. We're not liable for it. And that's a joint giro credit slip. Now the way that we pay it, because we can't pay it through the through the Consumer Credit Act as a promissory note, because a promissory note is a method of bills of exchange, but a promissory note is instigated between two parties, and it's made payable at a given time, at a given day. When that matures, then you pay. It's a promise to pay. I'd probably say it's a bit like an IOU. Would you agree? Yeah? A bit like an IOU. So we can't use that, and we can't use A for V, except for value. However, we can use a negotiable instrument. And what I do, don't touch the bill in any way, shape or form. You leave the bill blank.
So in other words, where you've written over there, you wouldn't touch that?
Yeah, don't touch anything of the bill. I'm going to do 3 squares on the top of the paper, which simulates, and Mark will put it on the video clearly, which will overlay what I'm doing, so you'll see. We put 3 first-class stamps across the top, which now
that's not actually on the joint credit slip, it's just above them.
Just above it.
Why just above it?
Because we don't want to touch this bill in any way, shape or form, because that's to us. So basically we put that on so they don't tamper with the giro credit slip.
Okay.
But by putting those 3 stamps on there, that's saying now, under the Stamp Act 1891, I own this document.
You are the postmaster.
I am the postmaster, yeah. Mark doesn't own the document, the judge doesn't own the document, and neither does the energy provider own that document. I own that document, and that's why I put it on there, because what happened 20, maybe 25, 30 years ago, they were double dipping. So they were getting paid twice. But because I put those 3 first-class stamps on there, that makes me the postmaster. And what you need to do across each stamp at an angle is
45-degree angle.
Yeah, your signature on each stamp, and also the date across each stamp. So that endorses a stamp, and that adds value to the document as well. So that stops them tampering with this joint giro credit slip, because now they can't do anything.
In actual fact then, they are still double dipping, aren't they? Because they're still sending this off to the clearinghouse and getting paid.
When they've already been paid.
And we're paying cash or cheque as well.
Yeah, but the other thing is, like you say, the E.ON or British Gas or whoever you're with, they've already been paid through the corporate bank.
Yeah.
They've already been paid for it. But yeah, in effect, yeah, they're getting paid again. But they were double dipping as well, and they were found out about that. And
so then, I guess if they were double dipping, they were actually triple dipping.
Triple dipping, yeah.
This is how corrupt they are.
Now, sometimes when you do this process, and you also need to put some wording on the top, and basically what the wording will be is, I transfer by my endorsement the sum of to the sum of, and whatever it states on the bill there. Because this is a negotiable instrument, and it comes under the bills of exchange, that you transfer by endorsement that amount, this one being £213.51p, transferred by my endorsement for a non-commercial agreement under that's it. And then you sign it again, and you put your national insurance number as well. So that tells them that you've transferred that by endorsement. Now sometimes when you do this method, and I say it's not for the faint-hearted, because it's a long drawn out process, they sometimes send it back intact as what you sent it. I can't prove it, but I assume they could have scanned that document again, what they sent back, the original document that you've sent. They'll send you the original one back, but I can't prove this, but I'm assuming that they've scanned my original document I've sent, and sent it to the clearing bank and already been paid on it. Can't prove that, but it could happen.
Or they could just be so terrified at the moment that we're figuring out the whole game, they're prepared to lose 100, 200 and something quid, rather than let it be known that that's what's been going on for ever.
Yeah. As I say, they'll send you letters back saying that they don't accept that form of payment, which is utter rubbish, because that's how commerce works. You've got to get your head around it. and they try and bamboozle you really with, we don't do this, we don't accept that, you can't pay with a promissory note. But we're not paying with a promissory note. And I always see what they put in the letter to you and highlight the bullet points in the letter that they've sent to you, and rebut those comments, if you like, and question those comments that they've sent to you. I always say, well, I've not paid with a promissory note, I've paid with a negotiable instrument. However, the promissory note is a bill of exchange, and it was Lord Denning that said you treat a promissory note as cash. So I let them know that I know what I'm doing and what I'm on about, and stops them trying to dig a hole for you, to drop you in it.
You reckon the police are keeping an eye on us?
Yeah, sounds like it, doesn't it? So that's it. But I've also been trolling on the internet as well, and when companies say that they do not accept, I'm sure they're watching us. Where are they? Oh, they're over there now. I've been trolling on the internet and found out, because they say that they don't accept promissory notes and they don't accept accepting on the internet, and the companies say to you, the corporations say they don't accept those forms of payment, but they have to, because that's how commerce works. So I went on the internet, and one I found was with Eon, and it will be overlaid clearly on the video, and in the bottom left I've highlighted it in yellow, and it says for their bonds, and this goes back to 31st of December, this is 2010, and I've got another document at home that goes to 2014 I think, and it says bonds and promissory notes issued by, guess who? Eon. So they do accept them. Another tip I'd like to give you, if you go on the internet and you're not sure if they have to accept them, because if they don't, then they will never exist. They'll go bankrupt on the first day.
So the reason that these issue the promissory notes then is to pay for the gas that they're pretending they bought.
Yeah.
They pay for it via a promissory note.
Yeah, or how can you see, a franchise, another company might want to buy energy off Eon, and they'll say, we'll give you a promissory note, we'll pay that, and Eon release the energy, and they accept promissory notes as well. So they negotiate, they issue, and they...
So this slightly comes back to something I was looking into years ago, where it was only companies with assets of over 2 million can apparently accept promissory notes. But of course, if both companies can accept them, then they can just trade between them with promissory notes.
Another tip, if you go on the internet and you find a company, and I've done it for what I need to do, the energy companies and utilities I need to do, if you Google the company and type in memorandums and associations, and look in articles of associations, and look down, it may be quite a few documents, but you just got to keep browsing through the pages. A lot of them will say that they do business, negotiate with the negotiable instruments, promissory notes, and the bills of exchange. So they do operate under that. They have to, because if they didn't, they'd just go bankrupt. They'd go bust on the first day trading, because that's what they do. They live off credit. They just make the credit, create the debt, and that's basically where we are on that. Unless you've got any questions, Mark. I'm not sure.
No, I was going to mention about the Articles of Association, but you mentioned it anyway.
Yeah, but that's where to go. So, just to recap, get yourself a gas warrant. Sorry, don't get yourself a gas. Get yourself a gas safety certificate off a gas safe engineer. That will cover you under the 54 Gas Act. That will blow that warrant of entry out the window, because that's a criminal warrant of entry, that is, and it just stating that they can use force because they're deeming that there's a gas leak, or you're the mad nutter that's going to blow up the street, basically. But as soon as you issue that will stop that straight away. Also remember that they're applying for 2 warrants at the same time, the 86, which is a statutory instrument, which is a warrant of execution, and that can only be enforced by consent. So remember that as well. Always look on the warrant what's being issued, if it's quoting the 86.
If they'll show it you.
If they'll show it you.
If they won't show it you, then clearly they've got something to hide, haven't they?
Yeah. And when you look at the warrant and the judge signs that warrant, always make sure as well that below that signature there's a date being signed in wet ink signature of that judge, which says when that warrant was issued, it was that judge that signed it, and it was the date when that warrant was signed. I looked at one warrant last week, and guess who signed the date? The gas agent. Naughty, naughty. So he signed that one. It's got to be the judge that signs it, and check your dates on the warrants when they're applied for. Some warrants that we're seeing, or I've seen, instead of saying Nottingham Magistrates Court or Derby Magistrates Court or the city that you live, a lot are now saying in the local justice area of Nottingham Magistrates Court. Now that should get you thinking as well, because they're trying to deflect away from it, and it could be in a room, couldn't it? It could be down the road, yeah?
It sounds like it's going to be a case of they've done their own warrant, basically.
Yeah.
And we know British Gas are guilty of this numerous occasions.
Yeah.
In fact, if you check on Sri Lanka Sea's YouTube channel, you'll see one where they raided my house, and that was with a warrant they'd issued themselves, because we actually called the court up and asked them about this no notice warrant, and the court said, we don't issue that type of warrant, we never have. But of course the police accepted the fact that the warrant officer said, yeah, we do. So the police go with them all the time.
Yeah.
But that was another fraudulent warrant, and also issued by British Gas, even though I wasn't with British Gas and never had been.
Yeah. There's another warrant they can issue. It's an emergency warrant, and that's 24-hour warrant, but that's like someone's walking by, you can smell gas. Again, I've not got issues with that, as long as it is what it is. It's gas coming out of the house, because it's your family and it's their health and safety at risk.
I think what we have to do here with these type of things where we know they've committed fraud, we have to go after the warrant officer that's committed perjury in court.
Yeah, that's what
unknowingly.
That's what we did with the guy in Crewe. I think it's worked because they withdrew. They withdrew from that now. Where I was due to go to court next Friday, the utility company's actually sent correspondence to the gentleman I'm helping that the warrant has now been withdrawn, but they'll send due correspondence in due course. So, as I say, they've got two options: they either run or they take it to county court, which is where we need to be.
So basically, we're so close to cracking this now. They know we're close. That's why they don't know what to do, and they're running around like headless chickens. But don't worry, as soon as we crack it, you will all know. And then hopefully we'll all be doing exactly the same, and they'll only be getting paid once from our accounts rather than us having to pay out of our pockets as well.
But yeah, it's not a quick fix. So if you do this method, you're in it for the long haul. It could go on for months, but you've just got to be strong-minded and you've just got to keep following it through. But if you start, then please carry it through. And if you've got to decide if you're going to commit from the start, basically. Because we're doing it, the group that I'm with, we're doing it.
The most important thing, you've got to be prepared for bailiffs coming at the door, locksmiths drilling your locks, because they do issue fraudulent warrants themselves, and that is a possibility.
Yeah.
So if you're not prepared for that, don't try it until we've proven it beyond a shadow of a doubt, and then we can all do it and it's game over.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the locksmiths, because when the locksmiths come and they drill your locks, they can't force entry by kicking your door in or pushing the door. All they're entitled to do is literally drill your locks through. They can't go through the bolts or anything, and it's not their job to open the door. It would be the gas agent. And another tip as well, when they issue warrants, and I've been on one, make sure the gas agent is in attendance when the warrant is issued on your property, because it's the gas agent that must issue that warrant.
And it also needs to be a warrant officer.
Yes. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. The warrant officer that issues the warrant, because they're the people that should issue that warrant.
As we've seen just a few weeks ago, I think it was trial by social media site on YouTube, where they were drilling locks of a guy, and because he'd got the door bolted from the inside.
That's Mark, yeah.
Yeah, although they drilled the locks out, they couldn't open the door. They had to leave because, like you were saying, they're not allowed to kick the door in.
In fact, one part of that video, I think the locksmith was literally using his foot, and I think the door actually opened 2 or 3 inches. But Mark Gillard, a good friend with Mark up in Burnley, he actually put the locksmith on notice and said, you put that door in, you're liable now. It's not your responsibility. They withdrew. The warrant wasn't served. They withdrew. However, his lock was damaged. Another thing as well, if British Gas, under the 86 Act, if British Gas do make entry in your absence and you're not in your property, they will make your damages good. They have to make your damages good and find it, leave the property how it was when they came to it. But on this particular occasion they did offer on video to replace his locks, but because of the cunningness, because I think there was 4 police there, they opted not to have the lock
Well, they
repaired.
were just using that as an excuse to
Yeah.
try and gain entry.
So if they opened the door, they'd just go through.
When they did the illegal burglary at my place, they did fit a new lock in. However, the lock they fitted was so flimsy, because it was patio doors.
Yeah.
I took the lock out the other side and changed it back over, because it took them 2 hours to drill our lock. It just proves that the lock quality of the lock we had in there was such a good quality, so I changed it back. But bear in mind, the reason they didn't get in there is because there were bolts as well. So if you know they're coming as well, I would personally, if you don't
Leave the key in the door.
well,
No
that's
lock.
if you want to go that
Yeah.
far. But if you've got a way of securing that door so it can't be opened, leave the door unlocked. If they can't open it, they don't get to drill the lock in the first place. You just go, right, it's locked from the inside, can't kick it in.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm not saying do this. This is just
No.
the way I would see things.
And they must also do a health and safety
Yes.
risk assessment
Yeah.
on the property that they're at.
In fact, that one up at Burnley, both the cops, the locksmith and the agents were all committing child abuse.
In fact, one of the police said because there was children behind the door, and I think it was one of the constables said he's going to report him to the child is it child protection? Whatever it is.
Try and get you any way you
Making
can when
false allegations.
when they were the ones causing the child distress.
And the police cannot, I know they do, but they cannot take sides with the corporate companies because they're working outside of their jurisdiction. But I spoke to earlier, there's a new legislation coming out now.
Yes,
When's
on
that
the
coming out?
13th.
13th, which makes the police now more
Only in 3 days' time.
Yeah, more susceptible now for complaints and personal
Prosecutions of
prosecution.
themselves. Yeah. If they act outside their oath, which we know they do, it's like the ones we just watched earlier, where
Yeah.
up in Manchester, where they smashed the door in. What?
Yeah.
How's that preventing a breach of the peace?
Yeah. 1 hour's notice they got. I heard from Wes.
Yeah.
No, it was disgusting. And they went into riot gear, didn't they? So that's it where I am with the gas. I hope it's highlighted a few points if there's a few grey areas that you're not sure about. If you're not sure, then just ask, please ask. There's a lot of groups out there. Marked Get Out Debt Free, Unbeat the Bailiffs and the Banks, there's Response UK, Eviction and Fraud of the Banks, East Coast. There's a lot of groups out there. Just get in touch, join them. They're all on Facebook, and if you've got a problem, just post it.
If you're not on Facebook, go and get out of debt free, because a lot of the guys that are on there are also on there.
Yeah.
And even if they don't get it on there, someone that is on Facebook will go on and post it for you.
Yeah, but it's key, isn't it? You must do your research.
Yeah, absolutely.
But time and time again, I did that and they did this. Well, then you didn't get the concept right.
Yeah.
And when we find out what they've done, they did it wrong. We should have done that, and they just watch a video, take bits off it, think they can do it, and they're not grasping it. They can stick the 3 stamps on, and that's it. It's paid for. It's not. You have to research it. But on the video I did at Eviction Fraud of the Banks, it will list the documents that I placed. But I'll quickly tell them what the documents.
Yeah, sure.
It was the Fraud Act 2006. It was the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. It was the Warrant of Entry, Section 2 and 3 of the 1954 Gas Act. It's an article from the book Archbold, not Archibald, Archbold, and that's by Lord Diplock versus, I think it was British Tyres. Basically, it says that everybody has an unhindered access to the courts, be it criminal or civil, and they must be heard unbiased in a neutral thing. Basically, it should be without prejudice. You have a right to go to court and be heard your case, and that's where it should be dealt with and disputed in the appropriate jurisdiction. I think that was mainly the documents that we put in. The Stamp Act 1891, because when we do the negotiable instrument on the joint giro credit slip, those articles, those bits that we quote, enforce how we've paid it with the stamps, you see, so that reiterates the Stamp Act 1891. The fraud comes in when they double dip, if they double dip, or once the money's been paid on the joint giro credit slip, and they return it or they keep it, they're in dishonour under the bills of exchange. So they've either cashed it, and because they've refused payment, there was no alleged bill in the first place. So that's where the Fraud Act comes in. The Harassment Act is when the gas companies keep pestering you. So we put the Gas Act, the Protection from Harassment Act in there from 1997. And of course you need the bills of exchange 1882. The main pages that you'll need is page 1 to page 27, I believe. Have a look. It's an old document. It goes back to 1882 and it's still used to this day. As I say, that's how commerce works. It's got to work because that's how we trade, unfortunately.
For the time being.
For the time being, yeah. So that's it from me.
And that's it from him.
Exactly. Shall we go and get a beer?
Why not?
Yeah.
See you later.
Debt Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.